There's a specific kind of math that happens in a lot of American households on a specific day every month. The Social Security deposit lands. Before it even clears, most of it is already spoken for: rent, a utility bill, something that came up. Not a yearly budget. Not even a monthly one. Just whether this week's numbers land close enough to work. That's one version of retirement in America. There's another version a few zip codes away, where the budget is just a habit nobody thinks about anymore because money was never the constraint in the first place. Same word, retirement. Two completely different lives. There isn't just one retirement in America. There are at least 8. Let's walk through all of them, starting from the bottom. Level 1. Survival retirement. Net worth under $100,000. Here, Social Security isn't a supplement. It is the income. As of 2026, the average Social Security retirement benefit is a little over $2,000 a month, roughly $24,000 a year. In most American cities, that covers 2 out of 3 basics: housing, utilities, groceries, rarely all 3 with room to spare. Medicare picks up most health costs, not all of them. Co-pays and prescriptions compete for the same fixed check. What almost nobody talks about is the mental toll. For decades of work, and retirement doesn't feel like a finish line, it feels like a new kind of financial pressure, except now there's no raise coming and no side gig to smooth out a rough month. A car repair or a medical bill can knock an entire quarter off balance. This is retirement as daily management. People here aren't living retirement. They're surviving it. Level 2. Stable retirement. Net worth around $250,000 changes the texture more than the number suggests. Social Security is still the base, but not the whole structure. Maybe $150,000 to $200,000 sits in an IRA or 401k, drawn down carefully. Maybe a modest pension from teaching, government work, or a union. Trade. Combined, these cover the basics without the edge of the cliff. Feeling of level 1. The home is often paid off, and that single fact stretches the income further than people expect. Hobbies are real but low cost: gardening, a card game, a church group. Travel happens occasionally, close to home, planned carefully. Enough to feel like an event. It's not exciting, but it's stable. And stable is worth more than most people realize until they've lived without it. Level 3. Comfortable retirement. At $500,000, the portfolio starts pulling real weight alongside Social Security. Suppose $350,000 is invested, drawn at a typical 4% rate, about $14,000 a year. Add an average Social Security benefit near $24,000, and total income lands around $38,000. In parts of the rural Midwest or South, that's genuinely comfortable with a paid-off home. In coastal cities like Seattle or LA, it's tight. Geography matters more than most calculators admit. The real shift here isn't the dollar amount, it's the buffer. The water heater breaks and it gets replaced without derailing the month. Being able to say yes to small things without doing math first sounds minor. To someone who spent years doing that math, it isn't. Level 4. Independent retirement. At $1 million, a 4% withdrawal generates about $40,000 a year from the portfolio alone. Combined with Social Security, total income often lands between $60,000 and $65,000. The right word here isn't comfortable. It's free. You can choose where to live based on preference instead of cost of living. Winters, somewhere warm. Spring, back home. The geography of life opens up. Travel a few times a year becomes realistic. There's still a budget, but it stops dominating every decision. The money still needs managing. $1 million is enough to retire on, not enough to be careless with, but the stakes of any single mistake are lower here than below. Level 5. Luxury retirement. At $3 million, the "can we afford this" conversation mostly stops. A 4% withdrawal rate, that's about $120,000 a year from the portfolio, plus Social Security, Total income around $140,000 to $150,000. International travel becomes a habit, not a once-a-decade event. Vacation home becomes a realistic conversation. What changes most is, where the mental energy goes, the portfolio can absorb a bad year, without forcing a lifestyle change, so the time that used to go toward financial stress goes toward actually using the years available. Level 6. Legacy retirement. At $10 million, retirement stops being about income. A 4% withdrawal generates about $400,000 a year. Nobody here worries about running. What replaces that worry is structure, how the wealth transfers, and what it costs to pass on. As of 2026, the federal estate tax exemption sits at $15 million per individual, made permanent under recent tax law. Trusts become working tools, a revocable trust to avoid probate, an irrevocable trust to move assets outside the taxable estate, a 529 plan funded generously enough to cover a grandchild's education. Philanthropy tends to show up seriously here, not just for the tax benefit, but because the question shifts from "am I secure" to "what is this actually for?" Level 7. Institutional wealth. At $50 million, the wealth outgrows what one person can manage. Alongside a life, a family office, a small private team handling investments, tax strategy, and giving enters the picture sometimes, shared across families to split the cost. Capital preservation becomes the goal, not beating the market. Because at this scale, a bad decade isn't a rough patch, it's a lasting problem. Private foundations are required by the IRS to distribute at least 5% of assets annually on a $10 million foundation. That's $500,000 a year toward causes the family cares about every year. Retirement here isn't about stopping. It's about redirecting decades of momentum into something built to outlast the person who built it. Level 8. Generational capital. At $500 million or more, this stops resembling retirement at all. Investments compound, businesses produce cash flow, real estate collects rent faster than any household could spend it. The decisions here aren't about comfort, they're about deployment, which companies to back, which institutions to fund, which causes to invest in at a scale that shapes entire fields. Major philanthropic organizations funded at this level routinely commit billions of dollars a year, operating like institutions with their own staff and strategy, not a retirement hobby. Nobody here is living off their wealth, they're stewarding it. Where this leaves you, 8 levels. Same word, retirement, attached to wildly different lives. What separates one level from the next isn't luck, and it's rarely one big decision. It's decades of small ones. What got spent, what got invested, what got automated before it could get spent at. Well, nobody starts at level 6. Everyone who got there started closer to level 1 or 2 and moved up one decision at a time, usually slower than they wanted, but steadily enough that it eventually showed up on paper. So here's the question worth sitting with. Based on how you're saving and spending today, which level are you actually on track for? Not the one you hope for, the one the math currently points to. If this gave you a clearer picture of where you stand, subscribe to Money Mindly and tell me in the comments which level are you building toward right now.